Hey guys, Jonathan here, and I want to bring you inside the experience of what it was like seeing Paul McCartney at one of the smallest venues he's played in ages. This took place at the Pinnacle right here in Nashville. It's a 4,500 capacity venue, and they actually locked our phones up when we got in, so I don't have any footage to show you because nobody has any footage to show you. But in a way, that's part of what made this concert experience so unique and expensive, as we'll get into in a minute. The reason I want to make this video is because this is unlike any other McCartney show that he's done in recent memory. Yes, this was a ticketed event and one that you could actually get tickets on the aftermarket for, so it's not quite like the show he did in New York where it was a lot smaller and tickets were non-transferable. But this time around there were still ticket restrictions, the phones being locked up, and a smaller venue made this a very unique experience, and because of that I felt like it was worth making a video on, so I'm glad you clicked on this video, and hey, it's great to see you. So let's start breaking down the night. The majority of tickets sold for this event were general admission, meaning it was a sea of people that were standing, and then there were some seats up in the balcony that were actual seats, but the majority of people in the building, like I said, were in a big pool standing in front of the stage. I was genuinely shocked how close people were able to get to the front of the stage, and so to spoil the set list a little bit, of course he did Live and Let Die like he does every night, but there were no fireworks tonight because people are so close to the stage, I think they'd be walking out of the venue without their eyebrows. So as we get into the night, it was crazy because people were lined up outside and people were there for hours and hours. In fact, my friend Sammy and her husband Nathan, they actually got there at like 10 in the morning and camped out all day till doors opened at 6:30. And I think everybody's got a unique story about how things went down. It was a little clunky, like if you had bought a resale ticket but didn't have it in the Access app, people were running into all kinds of issues at the doors. Those are their stories to tell, but I do want to highlight that getting into the venue was a very mixed experience depending on how you had your tickets. My ticket experience, I tried to get tickets on the pre-sale, didn't get in, didn't get any of the tickets when they launched, extra tickets along the way, so I did pay an insane amount of money for my concert ticket. I think it's the most I've ever spent on a single concert experience, but at the same time, I had such a great time at this show that even though it was my 10th McCartney show in my life, it was up there with the best, and I'm not kidding when I say that. Going into this, I feel like I was almost propagandized in the sense that I had heard so many people saying like, oh, his voice isn't gonna sound as good, he's climbing to his mid-80s here, how long can the show go on? And admittedly, there was a little bit of time there where I was at peace with not going to this show. My point being is, up to this point, I'd seen Paul 9 times in various concerts and, big conglomerates and his own concerts, and I honestly felt like I had so many great memories of Paul that if there was a chance he wasn't going to sound great, I was okay with living with the memories of the concerts that I had seen, and that was all well and good. Well, as you know, as the concert gets closer, you start to think like, man, I'd really love to be there, and so I eventually had to lock in and get a ticket. It was a nightmare. AXS was horrible to work with. If I could ever get around to having to pay them to see a show again, I certainly will, just in the sense that I would so much rather buy from like a reseller on StubHub than give AXS a dime of my money. Basically, I couldn't get a resale ticket through AXS because their website had some kind of glitch in it, and I talked to 3 different agents at AXS, and 2 of those 3 agents told me to buy a ticket on StubHub, which clearly is against the policy for this show. I can make a whole separate video on that. I'm not going to. I want the focus of this video to be what the experience was like at Paul, but it would be disingenuous of me to not point out that AXS was a nightmare to work with, both for me and apparently for people trying to get into the show. But let's get into the show now and actually talk about what went down. So with the giant sea of people out front, it had to be awesome to be up front. The ticket that I ended up getting was actually a seat up in the balcony, and the way that the seats were leveled, like the people sitting in front of me, nobody's head was ever blocking the stage or anything. It was a perfect view, albeit a lot further back than the people on the floor who were there in the general admission tickets. So Paul comes out on stage. It's electric. It's just unbelievable as you watch 1/4 of the Beatles walking out on stage, and he's doing his thing, liven up the audience, and the band goes straight into Help. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. And I do think that there's something poignant about Paul being cognizant of the fact that he is in his mid-80s for all intents and purposes at this point, and the first line he's singing is, "When I was younger, so much younger than today." First off, at least in my lifetime, I don't believe Paul has ever performed Help on tour until, this tour. I think he might have done it at some point during the 80s, like in a medley or something, if memory serves correctly, but in my time on this beautiful planet Earth, there's never been an opportunity for me to see Paul McCartney do Help, and so opening the show that way was so electric and so fun. The band then went straight into Coming Up, and he had a three-piece horn section for the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which was so neat. Admittedly, Coming Up is not one of my favorite Paul solo songs, but it was a really, really cool one to, get the energy for the show going, and I really, really enjoyed that. From there, the horn section stayed on for Got to Get You Into My Life, which was really great, felt really drivey and electric. Absolutely loved it. And then Paul did Drive My Car, Letting Go, and Come On To Me, of course, one of his solo songs. And this is where I felt like the show kind of like pulled back in pace a little bit. In my mind, Drive My Car is really moving. And I felt like the, attack that they did was just a little bit more laid back. I kind of liked it. I don't want to say like it was a different arrangement. Their tempo just wasn't up to like what you hear on Rubber Soul per se. It just drug a little bit. But I actually kind of liked it. It made it a little bit more like, I don't know, I don't want to say swampy, but that's the first word that comes to mind. Like, ding, 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 ding. I could talk about this all day. Letting Go was really cool. It was that real heavy driving version. Sounded great. Loved it. And Paul's voice was in full force. So at this point in time, between Got to Get You Into My Life, which is not an easy song to sing, and now Letting Go, when the key changes in that last verse there through the end, Paul's voice was in full force and right up there with the best I've ever seen him in the 10 shows I've seen. So I was a happy camper by this point and was just happy to kind of sit back, relax, and just let the show unfold in front of me. So from there, we got Let Me Roll It, Getting Better from Sgt. Pepper, which sounded so incredibly awesome. Let Him In, which of course he had that horn section, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, sounded so good, absolutely loved it. Then he did My Valentine, 1985, which always has so much energy, so good, loved it, and his voice was in full force, again, with all those screams and everything, it was great. Speaking of which, Maybe I'm Amazed came after that, and that's a difficult song for a young man to sing, let alone somebody that's walked the journey that Paul has, so to hear him do Maybe I'm Amazed in 2025, man, I got chills. And, of course, on this channel, I talk about music and post my own music, but if you know me from my Lego channel, you guys know I always keep it real with you and wear my heart on my sleeve. I was emotional many, many times throughout this show, just thinking about the impact that the Beatles have made in my life in inspiring me creatively. Not only that, but also just so many of my dreams coming true, so many of the amazing people I've met in my life are all by way of these incredible songs, Paul's catalog. I just got really emotional throughout the night at various points thinking about it, thinking about my relationship with my dad who introduced me to the Beatles. Again, I could do a whole nother video on that, and maybe someday I will, but it was just a really, really special night, and it's right around this point of the night it was really starting to hit me heavy. From there, they came out and did a little acoustic set list of I've Just Seen a Face with Paul and guitar, which was really, really amazing. They did In Spite of All the Danger by the Quarrymen. Oh my gosh, that was so cool, and I was not expecting to hear that. I didn't go into the show looking up the set list, so hearing technically the first Beatles song ever recorded was amazing, and then right after that, they did Love Me Do, which was the real first Beatles song recorded. So as an early Beatles fanatic, like to me, the best Beatles stuff is like in that 64, 65 era. It's just the stuff I like the best. Hearing stuff earlier than that was a treasure trove and super awesome. Paul did Every Night from McCartney 1, which was really cool. Not expecting that at all. Apparently, it's the first time he's played that on this tour, which is great. We got to hear Blackbird, which of course, not unexpected, but we didn't get Here Today. I think every time I've seen Paul in his own concert, because some of the things I've seen him at were like charity shows where it was like a lot of artists, but if I'm thinking about every time I've seen Paul where like he's the headliner, so to speak, I think he's played Here Today at all of them, so it was kind of interesting not to hear that, and also he didn't do Eleanor Rigby or Yesterday, which particularly Yesterday really makes me sad. I feel like that is his signature song of his entire career, and I understand it's a toughie to sing, at this point in time in his career, but it always makes me sad that he doesn't do that one anymore, even though I've heard it many times. It's just something I've really would have loved to hear. But anyways, we'll keep moving and grooving. He did Now and Then with the great music video from the actual Beatles song playing behind him. Man, Lady Madonna, Jet, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite with these super cool lasers, Something on the ukulele, Obla Di Obla Da, Band on the Run, Get Back, Let It Be, Live and Let Die, and then closed it out with Hey Jude. Then, of course, he came back for an encore, which was I've Got a Feeling, where he had John on the screen behind him singing the Everybody Had a Good Year. It was amazing, and then they got to sing it together thanks to digital enhancement. That was unbelievably cool. After that, he did the Sgt. Pepper's reprise straight into Helter Skelter, which was unbelievable. Did not expect to hear him do that. Then, of course, he did the Golden Slumbers medley, and that was the entire show. A couple of real fun highlights is he read some posters that people had brought in, and my favorite poster that he read, somebody said something about, like, Beatle Girl Screams, and Paul said, all right, yeah, let's hear Beatle Girl Scream then, yeah. And all the girls screamed like it was 1964, and I wasn't on the planet at the time, so I never got to experience that, but it was really, really awesome and very deafening to hear in person. I think this was about as close to a perfect McCartney set list as I can imagine. The only songs that I would have loved to hear are All My Loving, because I just think that that's such a signature Paul song. Saw Her Standing There would have been amazing to hear because, of course, my dad and I share a lot of great memories of that song on road trips and just, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's just so iconic to get to hear that. I would have loved to hear that. And my third pick that I would have loved to have heard that he has played on tours like a couple years ago was From Me to You, which is my favorite Beatles song. Again, I'm spouting off all kinds of ideas I could do here on the channel, but I think From Me to You is my favorite Beatles song, and I would have loved to hear him do that. But regardless, it was a phenomenal show, and it was really interesting, like, having cell phones locked up. I don't have any footage to share with you per se. I mean, I do have this photo that they posted on the venue Instagram of me and my friends, which was really cool to be featured there and documented forever. But overall, my big takeaway is this. I am so glad that I didn't listen to people who online were saying, oh, his voice is shot, you know, it's over. I thought it was amazing. It was one of the best times I've ever seen him as far as like energy and sound. Sometimes when he was behind the piano, the songs would drag a little bit. Not in a bad way. I just noticed the tempos tended to slow down if he was behind the piano. Just personal take, but overall, I thought it was a phenomenal show. I can't sing the praises enough of it. It was great. And if you have the ability to go, I would highly recommend seeing Paul if you can, if you haven't already, because just the reality of it is, this can't go on forever. We could be lucky to have Paul till he's 110 years old, but the touring and big productions like this, you know, there's not going to be a ton more opportunities to see him. So if he comes anywhere near you and you're able to do it, I highly recommend it. Last night was a night I'll reflect on for the rest of my life because it was just so, so special. Even having gotten to see Paul many times before, which again is a blessing in and of itself, there was something so magic last night about being present, not having your phone out, nobody having their phone out, and everybody just soaking in an experience together, and it was truly, truly remarkable. So go see Paul if you haven't already, or if you have, why not go see him again? It was awesome. So thanks for watching this video. Let me know if you've seen Paul on tour recently, and yeah, we'll stay connected. Thanks, guys, and I'll catch you soon.